All right, John. What I want to do is I want to do Parshas Noach today. We're going to get to Lech Lecha this week. There's the Brachas, but there are too many things in Noach that we have to deal with here. So let's go through Noach, and hopefully we'll get it all done today. Okay. So I told you last time. I don't remember if we had done this last time, but in Perek Vav, Pasuk Yud Aleph, which is the third part, page 30. And we said this is the reason the world has to be destroyed. We didn't do much last time, did we? All right, did we speak about that last time? Yeah. Noach has three times Shem, which is the name, Cham, which is hot, and Yafes, which is beauty. So you have Shem, Cham, and Yafes. And we are Semites. From Shem. We come from, I never knew what a Semite was. I had no idea. I know what an anti-Semite was. An anti-Semite is always somebody who hates Jews is an anti-Semite. I never heard anybody go, oh, he's a Semite. Now, I never hear my parents talk about, oh, he's such an anti-Semite. I never knew what a Semite was. And I just thought an anti-Semite means somebody who hates Jews. I never knew that a Semite actually comes from Shem. And never say, oh, he is a Semite. You just say he's an anti-Semite. There's certain words are like that. It's like when I see a lady, who's an older lady, say, she's no spring chicken. You ever hear that expression? Boy, she's no spring chicken. I never heard any ladies say, "Oh, she's a spring chicken." Certain words are, you never say, "Oh, I feel a bit under the weather." Say, how are you? Well, I'm over the weather today. Certain expressions are only in the negative. Right? So there's one of them is called an anti-Semite. An anti-Semite. Okay, so you have Shem is the Semites, Cham is the hot-blooded people. And Yefes is from the word beauty, which is culture, which is Europe. Shem is the Jews, the Muslims, right? Those are the Semites. Muslims happen to be, why? Because the word Shem, it means name. It means they're focused on the name, focused on God. What does Hashem mean? Hashem means the name. We're focused on God. Muslims are very focused. Everything is for Allah. Right? If you blow up a bridge, it's for Allah. Right? If you go into a town, if you slaughter all the people in the town, it's all for Allah. It's all for Allah. I had once in my neighborhood, when I first moved in, there was an Arab mailman. I wouldn't do this today, but back in the day, so it was a hot day, so I invited him into the house for a drink. There weren't that many people in the neighborhood. The guy coming around, so I invited him. He stopped at the doorway. And he mumbled something at the doorway. So I said, what was that? He says, they said there's a prayer when they cross a threshold. The prayer. Then I offered him a drink. He takes the cup and he muttered something before he took a drink, like their version of a bracha. Right? And then they daven 5 times a day. Now they have a Nate's minyan. I mean, they daven before Nate's. I heard a guy on the what do you call it? What they're saying, reading from the Quran, has to do with killing Jews. But okay, but at least they're doing it 5 times a day. So they're very Shem focused. Cham refers to the nations that descend from Cham, which is generally the African continent, where it's hot, and there's more of a kind of a spontaneous, impetuous nature. And Yefes is Europe. Now there's going to be crossover over here because each one, you see that from these 3, many nations emerge. Which ones each one had in his genetic makeup. They had in the future, there were certain what they call dormant genes, so you got a lot of different nations that come out of them that look different and behave. But this is basically the way the world's distributed. What's fascinating here is, where do we come from? Now this is remarkable. We come from Shem, from Avram Avinu, and from Sarah Imenu. We are a pure Shem line. Where does Yishmael come from? Comes from Avram Avinu. But he comes from Avram Avinu, but Hagar, who comes from Cham, because she's from Mitzrayim. So he's got the Shem focus with the Cham heat. Right? Isn't that remarkable? No more. We don't need to elaborate on that at all. All you got to do is watch how they behave. Right? There's the Shem focus of that. With I don't want to go into any insulting what do you call it, but you see how they behave. You see the Cham nature over there, but there's the Shem focus, the supposedly Shem. Can we open that window over there? Ben, while you're up, open that window. And after that, I got more stuff for you to do, Ben. Yeah, let's start with that. Yeah, and after you're done with that, maybe you could get me a Coke. And after that, yeah.
Sarah wasn't also from Mitzrayim?
No, Sarah is from pure Shem line. They're all the descendants of Shem, pure Shem line.
She was not a princess?
No, that's Hagar. That's Hagar comes from it. Avram marries Hagar and has Ishmael. That's exactly the point. Yeah, that Avram is Shem, Hagar is Mitzrayim, is Cham, and then you get a Yishmael. So he's got Shem focus and Cham heat. Sarah is Sarah is Avram's niece. Sarah is Avram Avinu's niece. Okay, now, where does the trouble here start, gentlemen? Turn back for one page. Turn back to one page. The trouble starts, if you remember on page 26, the trouble starts with, if you look at page 26, Perek Vav, Pasuk Beis, where the Torah says, it's about 10 lines from the bottom. Vayiru b'nei ha'Elohim es benos Adam. B'nei ha'Elohim means the important officials saw the girls. Ki tova seina vayikchu lahem nashim mikol asher bacharu. They took women anywhere they want. They took married women, all that. That's where the corruption started. The key word in that pasuk is vayiru. They saw. They looked. And the trouble starts with the eyes. Trouble always starts with the eyes. Look at the very last pasuk in Parshas Bereishis. V'Noach matza chen be'enei Hashem. Noach found favor in the eyes of Hashem. Now that's the plain meaning. But there are commentaries that say you put a comma after the word chen. V'Noach matza chen. Noach found favor. You know why? Be'enei Hashem. He had godly eyes. Be'enei Hashem. Noach had godly eyes. I mean, sometimes people use their eyes. Your eyes become fleshik. Right? What we call fleshik eyes. Your eyes are all over the place. Eyes is where the trouble starts. Look at what happens over here. Look what happens over here in Pasuk Yud Aleph. Vayar Elokim, fourth line. Vayar Elokim esa aretz v'nei nishchasa. God saw the land became corrupted. Again, seeing. Mida keneged mida. You use your eyes, you misuse your eyes, God sees it. Vayar Elokim esa aretz v'nei nishchasa. Everybody became morally corrupt. The commentaries point out, Rav Hirsch, others point out, this is why, you get to the question, why didn't Hashem let them do tshuva? Why wasn't there a day? Why do they have to be deleted? Why does it all have to be deleted? Why can't maybe they'll do tshuva? And he gave them 120 years to do tshuva. But at the end of the day, where was the main flaw that causes mankind to be destroyed? You know where it is? This is just so much what we live through. It's Vayar Elokim es ha'aretz. God saw the land became corrupted. Rav Hirsch says that's the problem. Only God saw it. Only God saw it. That means people start sinking. You don't even realize that we're doing anything wrong anymore. We got to the point we don't even realize how corrupted we've become. Words, expressions, ideas, everything starts with the word trans nowadays. Right? When I was growing up, there was only one word. It was called transatlantic. It's when you flew, you went on a transatlantic flight. That was it. Nowadays, transit. We don't even realize that what's happened to us. The way people talk at 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you blush. You didn't say these things. You certainly didn't try to justify them. No, he justified these things. What kind of nonsense is that? You don't realize what's happened to you? Do you know that Hollywood used to have what's called the Actors Guild? There were rules in Hollywood. You couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. All of a sudden, when I was growing up, there was something called PG. Right? There was G, a G movie. There was PG. PG is parental guidance. Right? There's parental guidance. Then there's R, restricted. Right? That means only adults could become corrupted. Then the children aren't allowed to watch that corruption. Parental guidance is that your parents are allowed to show you what can corrupt you. They have to agree to what can corrupt you. That was PG. The rules have all changed. The graph has slid over. And we don't even know it. We don't even feel it. We become desensitized. That's Vayar looking. That's what the commentaries say. That's what destroys. It's such a powerful idea because that's what happens to us all the time. Okay, so God says to Noach, go and build this ark. Now, before anything about this teva, in Pasuk Yud, Aseh lecha teva satzei gofer, kinim taseh satzei, kafarto sabibayso chutz bakofer. How big is it going to be? Let's say it's 600 feet, probably 450, between 450 and 600 feet. 50 ama rochba, 30 ama komasa. I mean, you're going to build this ark, so it's going to be, let's say, two times the size of, let's go with maximums. Two football fields long. 2 football fields long. 4 men are going to build this. 4 men are going to build a structure 2 football fields long, a football field wide, and 3 stories high, 4.5 stories high. In our Shloshi Mama, 4.5 stories, 5 stories high. I mean, it's a lot of work. I don't know. 3 men? Yeah, and they got to cut that. It's not like you went into a hardware store and bought nails. And, you didn't get a lumber delivery over there. You got to cut down the trees and make the woods, make the boards, make the beams, and then you got to go paint it all, put on tar, the whole thing. You're in a massive structure. I don't even know if 120 years is enough for 4 guys to do it. Right? And if that's not enough, what are they going to bring in there? You're going to make 3 stories. You're going to make individual compartments, and then you're going to bring in all in umikol achai. Next page, 32, 4th line. Umikol achai mikol basar shnai mikol tavil tevil achai. You're going to make a minimum of 2 animals into the teva. A minimum of 2, zocher and a keva yiyu. Birds. What do you call it? Now there's a discussion here. I once asked my brother, who was going to be a zoologist, were these species? In other words, you brought in dog, cat, rhinoceros, or you brought in German shepherds, Dobermans, Cocker spaniels, all the subspecies. Mm-hmm. There is an opinion that it was all the subspecies. But I asked my brother, even if it wasn't, let's say it was only this species, would a teva that size hold all the animal species in the world? He said to me, not even close. And it certainly wouldn't hold all the food that they need to eat for a year. You know how much was an elephant or a grizzly bear? Which one of it? One of them eats 300 pounds of food a day.
Including people.
That's besides yeshiva guys, right? And I'm talking about, I think it's an elephant, 300 pounds of food a day. Then you got the waste products. You got all the animals. All the animals are, I mean, that's all cows do all day. And you're filling up, so the whole thing is an ace. The whole thing is a miracle because it doesn't work. It doesn't work with all the food for a year, a human being, all the food for a year, and refrigeration, and all the questions. The whole thing, the Ramban says it's all a miracle, so why do it at all? The answer is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu tries to minimize the miracle as much as possible. Noach builds a teva. People are asking him constantly, why are you doing this? And Noach is telling them why he's doing it. And at the end of the day, it's a chance for mankind to try to do tshuva if they could do tshuva. And they have 120 years to do tshuva. They've taken advantage of a utopia. You're living in a world where you have everything for you. It's all good. Everything is good. And when things are too good, then man, what do you call it? It's only after the flood that you have rain, you have storms, you have tsunamis, you have volcanoes, you have the flood. Before that, it was like living in San Diego. Right? San Diego's got the most, what do you call it, weather? I think the weather report in San Diego, they only report it once a year. Right? It's going to be 74. Right? That's it for the year, right? 74 and sunny, right? San Diego has like the most moderate, there's no change. That's what the world was like. That's what the world was like. Lousy sports teams, but good weather. That's what the world was like. You want to go to Philadelphia, so Philadelphia is freezing cold, but you win championships once in a while. Those are your choices in life. Freezing cold, the weather, everything was wonderful. Everything was terrific. And mankind blew it. So Hashem says you got 120 years to do tshuva. Okay, now watch this. There's a medrash that says, Perik Zayin Posuk Vav. Take a look at Perik Zayin Posuk Vav. It's Vayas Noach, page 32. Where's my psukim over here? My psukim got rubbed out. Yeah. God says he's going to erase the world. 40 days and 40 nights it's going to rain. And then it says, Vayas, 5 lines from the bottom. Vayas Noach kechol asher tzivo Hashem. Noach did what Hashem commanded him, which is that he built this ark. Noach builds the teva. And Noach goes and he brings in the food and the supplies and everything else. So there's a medrash that says, I'm quoting the words of the medrash. Amru lo, they said to Noach, Zakein, old man, teva zu lama, why are you building this teva? And Noach said to them, because God's going to be destroying the world. So if you take a look, when did Noach finish it? The next pasuk says, "V'Noach ben sheish be'el shodav ha'mabul yamayim al haaretz." Noach was 600 years old, and the Mabul started coming down. Took 120 years to build it. So how old was he when he started?
480.
480. Now, how long did they live in those days? People were living to 900. Noach lived to 950. In the grand scheme of things, let's knock off a zero. In the grand scheme, a 48-year-old man nowadays, 48-year-old man is not an old man, right? Nowadays, no matter what age anybody is, he calls himself middle age. Right? Everybody's a middle age. The guy's 97. I'm middle age. Right? Well, in chess, there's something called end game. Right? 97 is end game. A guy 65 years old says, "Well, I'm middle aged." I'm middle aged. I got news for you. Right? Statistically, that's not middle age. People don't live to 130 nowadays. Right? So when Noach goes and says Noach is 600 years old, they said to him, "Old man, why are you building this teva?" It's only 48. It's only 48. Why are they calling him an old man? Well, what does that mean? Well, it's the old-fashioned ideas. I remember I grew up, I was a little kid with the hippie generation. The hippies had an expression, "You're square." You ever hear that? Right? Don't be so square. Right? Now their theme, their slogan was, "Do your own thing, man." That I remember. Do your own thing. As long as your own thing involves wearing dirty jeans, right, and doing drugs, right? If you happen to wear a three-piece suit and you have a nice haircut, right, then you're square. But you said, "Do your own." That is my own thing, right? No. It's your own thing as long as it's our thing. It's like the Democrats nowadays. The country is democratic as long as you do it our way, right? If anybody dares say the opposite, then you're right. I forgot. I don't even know the expressions they use. But that's not it's a threat to democracy. Right? If the majority wants something else, it's a threat to democracy. Even in Israel, when Menachem Begin, when he first in 1977, up until that point, it was the left that was dominating the government. And in 1977 was the big revolution, and Begin took over the government from the right. He got elected as prime minister. So there's a famous quote. One of the arch leftists who was frustrated. They said to him, "Yeah, but this was what the people wanted. This is what this is what the nation wanted, because the majority voted." He said, "Then we have to trade in the nation. We have to change the nation. This isn't the nation that we expected." Oh, well, listen, we didn't make a country so that the country should be we want a country of leftists, not rightists, right? Well, so you're all of a sudden, it's not my way, so you're square. Old man, they're saying to Noach, "Old man." That's exactly what we face. Oh man, what's with these old-fashioned ideas? What's with the old-fashioned ideas? Get with the program. The world's advanced over here. We're all liberals. The world's over. What happened to you? What happened to you? All of a sudden you're for decency? Well, what's with you? Were you dropped on your head? What's going on over here? Come on, old man. Get with the program. You see, the Torah is timeless. It just repeats over and over. The same thing over and over. Okay. So he gets into the flood. You have this flood over here. Then let's go on. I don't want to spend too much time there because Bereshit, all the parts of Bereshit are going to catch up to us very quickly. But I just want to go on. There are a few points over here. He's in this. Noach is hesitant to get into the teva, and he goes into the teva eventually, and he's in there for a year. Now stop and think about this. What was he doing for a year in the teva? A year in the teva. So there were two things that happened. Number one, the Torah says that the men and husbands and wives had to separate for the entire year, number one. And it says that Cham broke that rule, and therefore he was punished. Cham lived with his wife in the Teva. According to some, I think that's where, what's his name, was conceived. There is a medrash, I think, that Og Melech HaBasha. There's one medrash that Og Melech HaBasha was on the outside of the Teva. I think there's another medrash that was conceived by Cham. I don't remember if I'm getting the right thing, if I'm getting something mixed up. But certainly there's one medrash that he hung on to the outside of the Teva, and that the water around the Teva was cold, whereas everything else. Now, the flood is for a year. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights, and the world is flooded for a year. He's stuck in a Teva for a year. I had a guy here at Ohr Somayach who told me he was in a submarine, the United States Navy. They were underwater. He told me that he was in a submarine that at the time he had set the record for the longest time submerged underwater, which is 8 months. He said he had to pass a lot of psychological tests in order to get on that submarine. 8 months he was in the Navy, underwater. I remember he told me 8 months, which sounds a long time to me, but that's the way I remember him telling me. He said it was so tight in the submarine that they're sleeping in 3 tiers. He was sleeping in 3 tiers. He said to turn over at night, it was so tight, you had to step, if you wanted to roll over from your right to the left, you had to get into the aisle, turn yourself over, and go back in like a piece of toast. You have to do the other side. You had to do the other side. He said it was so uncomfortable, and his infrared light, he said if he really wanted to get a good night's sleep, he would take his pillow and his blanket and go into the missile room, and he would just lie down on a nuclear missile. You know, and that's how he got a good night's sleep. Yeah, that's what the guy told me. So he said that they were, what do you call it, and they have an officer's quarters. You know, they have on the submarine, they have the officer's quarters. If there was less power on the submarine, they kept the air conditioning on in the officer's quarters and turned it off in the enlisted men's quarters, which was also apparently not very comfortable. And so after all this time, they finally came up. He was the second guy out of the submarine when they were in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. First guy gets out. The first time he's breathed fresh air, he said it felt like being born. That's what he said. And you finally come out after 8 months, and you're in, wow, you know, and you're looking around. You're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I don't know that that's much better. Hey, it's not like you're going anywhere. You're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. But he said, so Noach is there for a year. What was he doing the entire year? 24-hour shifts of feeding the animals. That's what the Gemara says he was doing. Eliezer saw Shem ben Noach. Eliezer, the servant, he said, what were you doing on the teva? He said, we were feeding the animals, caring for the animals. They got a lot of animals there. You got hippopotami and rhinoceri and all sorts of chazarai, right? And girafferai, and and you're feeding these animals left, right, and center 24 hours. You know how much animals eat? Now, what's amazing is Noach is the tzaddik of the generation, right? I just heard somebody speak. He said, picture the Chafetz Chaim. You've seen pictures of the Chafetz Chaim. And instead of learning Torah all day, Rav Chaim Kanievsky or Rav Elyashiv or the Chafetz Chaim, all day long they're feeding animals in a zoo. Didn't think of those terms, did you? Right? Think of that. Think of the biggest tzaddik you could picture. Think of the biggest tzaddik you could picture, Moshe Feinstein. And all day long, instead of learning Torah, all he's doing on 24 hours a day is feeding the animals. He said to him, Shem ben Noach said to Eliezer, we had tremendous tsar. It was tremendous ordeal being in the teva taking care of the animals. That's what he said to him. 24-hour shift for an entire year. Why? What was going on? What's really going on here? We'll see this as a theme that repeats itself. What's really going on? The answer is that there were 2 flaws of the generation of the flood. One flaw was immorality, and the other flaw was interpersonal cruelty, stealing, violence, which is called gezel, chomos. That had to be rectified in order to create a new world order. And the rectification of that is, number 1, the husbands and wives separate for a year, which rectifies the flaw of immorality. And number 2 is chesed, olam chesed ibana. What was the test of Moshe Rabbeinu? How did Moshe Rabbeinu become chosen leader of the Jewish people? He was a shepherd. What were Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? What were they? They're all shepherds. Shepherds means that you're treating even animals. There's a sensitivity even to animals, unlike the animals' rights people who will, poison human beings for the sake of animals. That's frowned upon, right? Putting razor blades in candy bars because you're protesting for the whales, that is generally, oh no, I never heard of that, huh? Where do you never heard of razor blades and candy bars? Because they're protesting for the, for the whales, save the whales. Oh yeah, well that's frowned upon. From a Torah point of view, that's frowned upon. So all these things that they used to do, all these things, like the human rights people have no problem. Animal rights people are probably at the forefront of pro-abortion. Animals are important. We don't want too many people in the world crowding the animals. So the pro-abortion. I saw a video once of a pro-life versus those are some of the most violent protests. Pro-life versus pro-choice. You ever see those protests? The pro-lifers, there was a pro-lifer who went into he went into an abortion clinic and he killed people, he shot people up. He got years ago. He's pro-life. But if you're going to be pro-life, you're going to do it my way. So this guy went in and he shot people up. I saw a video when I filmed, and I was in the United States. This going back about 25 years ago. They had the news. And they had a pro-choice, an abortion They had an abortion protest. So the guy, even the newscaster, goes, "Oh, now you got to see this, right? You got a bunch of people who are pro-abortion lying down on a street, right? They're lying across, all lined up side to side on the street. Then you had some pro-life. There's this pro-life redneck, right, who gets in his Ford van, right? And I remember the announcer on TV says, "No, you're not going to believe this." And he took this van and he just ran it over all their legs. He just drove it over the whole line, and all you see is boom, 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 boom. He's bouncing across their legs on the thing. So these are all distortions. These are all distortions. A Torah Jew, the choice of Moshe Rabbeinu is because the compassion, even not only for animals, the compassion even for animals. Noach is compassionate this is chesed that's going to rebuild the world. Not only that, somebody once suggested the fertilizer that they're producing, which is then going to be used to fertilize the new world, is fertilizer that came as a result of chesed. It's a world that is now being planted with chesed, a chesed influence. Not only that, believe it or not, you know what the commentaries say? If you look back for a second, where God says, Vayer Elokim, again, I'm back on page 30, just for 1 second, where it says, Vayer Elokim es ha'oretz v'hinei nishchasa, the very earth itself became corrupted. The earth itself needs to be destroyed. That's why you have a flood that takes away the layers of topsoil. The whole layer of the earth has to be redone, because the earth absorbs the corruption, which, by the way, the commentaries say, if your corrupt actions could affect the earth, imagine what your good deeds do. Your good deeds also exert an influence. And not only that, when you do a mitzvah, it exerts some sort of ruchni, there's some sort of spiritual influence. You got a Jew in California who one day will put on tefillin because you learned Torah in Yerushalayim. Now you're going to share in the reward for his putting on tefillin. The effects of your actions, we don't know. It's a spiritual thing. If negative action could corrupt the very physical essence of the earth, and that's why, even in science, they say that there's nothing that goes like your vapor turns into something. It's all recycled. Once the world was created, everything in the world is recycled. So your actions create a spiritual force, both in the negative and in the positive. And if Jews are learning Torah, other Jews are going to do tshuva.
But Torah learning is not a mitzvah, maseh.
Doesn't matter. To the contrary, Talmud Torah Kedei is the most powerful spiritual force. They once asked Rav Shteinman Zatzal, a man wanted to donate money. He said, should he donate money to yeshivas or should he donate money to outreach organizations that do kiruv? Rav Shteinman said, donate it to the yeshivas, because the more the yeshivas learn, the more kiruv there will be. Because it doesn't exist in a vacuum. We don't live in a vacuum. Torah is the ultimate potency is Torah. A lulav and an esrog is also a mitzvah. Mezuzah is also a mitzvah. Torah learning is not a mitzvah. Torah learning is the mitzvah.
Rabbi Tzedakah and Baba Batra.
It's also wonderful.
It's called the mitzvah.
They're all mitzvah. This is the mitzvah. Torah is the mitzvah.
It's called ha-mitzvah.
Good, but
It's
this is
kulam.
good.
But Tzedakah.
Talmud Torah keneged
It says
kulam.
about Tzedakah and Baba Batra daf tet.
It doesn't say the words.
Tzedakah
So,
keneged kulam.
but the ultimate mitzvah is Talmud Torah. You will find if a person has two possible mitzvahs to do. Let's say you have two possible mitzvahs to do. Should you study Torah or should you get involved in tzedakah distribution? What's the answer?
But if the mitzvah is not going to be done, then you have to.
Oh, but what if it will be done by somebody else?
Then you don't do that, you learn Torah.
Then you learn Torah. Torah is the ultimate mitzvah. That means if nobody else is doing it, the mitzvah comes your way, then you're right. You have to stop and do it. But the Rambam says, you stop learning Torah because nobody else could do it. But if somebody else could do it, so what do? It's not like, I have a choice now, tzedakah or Torah. Somebody else will take care of the tzedakah, you learn Torah. Somebody else will save somebody's life, you learn Torah. Somebody else is going to put up the mezuzah, you learn Torah. There's also this focus, this emphasis on Torah. So the energy created by Torah, but again, you're right, the energy created by tzedakah, the energy created by tefillin, the energy created by chesed, all of it has an influence. The point is that if the world could be corrupted by negative, the world carries a positive by the positive actions. Now, I want to go on. First of all, this to keep the flood into proper perspective. where the Torah says that God opened up all the windows of the heavens and all the floodgates of the earth. We're talking about volcanoes in the ocean and total upheaval with what a tsunami pales in comparison to what was that. The big tsunamis pale in comparison to what was going on over tremendous. The entire world is in upheaval. Things are uprooted. Mountains are flying around all over the place. The place is not just like a bath. Not like a big bath, where the bath water overflowed. You were talking about movement, a tsunami. Picture the tsunami, whatever the tsunami was. This is 1,000 times worse. Okay. Take a look at page 38. So Noach comes out, sorry, not 38, sorry, further. Perik Tes Pasuk Zayin. Perik Tes Pasuk Zayin. Okay. And here you have the second mitzvah in the Torah. Sorry, the first mitzvah in the Torah. Ve'atem pru urvu shirtzu va'aretz urvuva. God, they come out. God says, okay, I want you to increase. I want you to be fruitful and multiply. This is the command of pru urvu. There are 3 mitzvahs in all of Sefer Bereshis. The whole Sefer Bereshis, there are only 3 mitzvahs from the Taryag. The first one is this one, be fruitful and multiply. What's the second one? Brit Milah. What's the third one?
To not eat the
Correct. What's it called?
Asiatic bone.
Right. The what do you call it? Not Aver Minachai. Aver Minachai is no Chai Loy. It's a provision. You're right. But the positive mitzvahs, 3 positive mitzvahs, is what do you call it? The Gid Hanosha. And even Aver Minachai comes up later. It's not. It's a.
What is the third one?
A Gid Hanosha, the sciatic nerve that we are not allowed to eat the sciatic nerve. We'll see in Parshas Vayetze. Okay. Now, in Parshas Yishlach, Parshas Vayishlach. So here you have the mitzvah of pru urvu. Now there's an interesting question here. The mitzvah of pru urvu, by the letter of the law, is that a man has to get married and have a son and a daughter, by the letter of the law. And if a man, let's say, got married, he had 10 boys, and then let's say his wife died, he has an obligation to try to remarry until he has a daughter. Obviously, it's not all, it's not all up to him. It's not like a mezuzah, you have to have somebody who's willing to marry you. But to the degree, or a man gets married, and let's say the couple doesn't have kids, or whatever the issues are. But ultimately, the mitzvah is for a man to have a son, at a minimum, a son and a daughter, and not to stop. Not to stop. I mean, you have as many children as you could have, and to practice birth control is only with a halachic permit. You have to have a responsible halachic authority who allows birth control. There are extreme circumstances where birth control is permissible. For example, if a woman is a physical threat to her health, let's say a woman had a miscarriage. Sometimes after a miscarriage, a woman can't get pregnant or shouldn't get pregnant for anywhere between 6 months and a year. Sometimes it could be after a cesarean birth, so then the area is vulnerable and she can't get pregnant. These are halachic. They're halachic, legitimate halachic reasons. Finances sometimes, generally not. Financial pressure. It could be an emotional pressure. It could be a woman who's on the verge of a breakdown. Then again, this woman comes to the rabbi. She says, "Rabbi, I have 8 kids. I can't have any more kids. Why not? They're driving me nuts. Are they absolutely nuts? Absolutely nuts. Out of my mind. Totally out of my mind." Well, then you can't get any worse. So you may as well have more kids, right? Because you're totally out of your mind already. So obviously that's only tongue in cheek. And that's one of the reasons why you'll notice that in the frum world, if you're from where, you guys have been in houses for Shabbos, a family with 7 kids, which in the world at large is considered a rather large family. In the Torah world, 7 kids is like, they only been married 7 years. Sometimes you get these family of 10 kids, 12 kids, then you're getting into the major leagues there. And, my upstairs neighbor has 9 sons. Whoa. And 7 daughters. Yeah, that's not a family, that's a tribe, right? And now they're all married, by the way. Now he's got grandchildren. He doesn't even know how many grandchildren he has. I don't think how many grandchildren they have. They make a wedding. There are no guests. There's no room for any guests. It's just family. The family picture is a collage. It's not no photos and they're all. My kids grew up with his kids, and they're all the stable, normal. A lot of the questions of how do you handle so many kids and so on and so forth. It's only the parents' attitude. At the end of the day, it's the parents' attitude. If parents are living for themselves, then 2 kids is too much. then the 2 kids are going to feel they don't get enough attention. And if the parents are living for their children, then 20 kids, each one feels like an only child. It has to do with the attitude on the part of the parents. They had, in Israel, nowadays they have these nifty Rav-Kavs. They have these Rav-Kavs, get on the bus with the green card, you just put it. So in the old days, they used to have these punch cards. You punched, for each person that got on, you punched the card. The driver stood there with this thing and he punched the cards. So this lady gets on with 10 kids on the bus. She gets on with 10 kids and the bridegroom's like, she says, lady, do me a favor. Next time leave half your kids at home, will you? She says, I did. I have 20. So yeah, I know one family that had twins, irregular, and then twins. They had 5 kids under 3 years old in the first 3 years of marriage. They had 5 kids under 3 years old. How do you like that? They have an automatic diaper machine, by the way. You just put the kid in at one end, and he just comes out the other end. He's fully changed and diapered. One of those. Then I knew somebody else who had twins, irregular, and triplets within 4 years. Within the first, they had 6 kids under 4 years old. Great fun. So there are 2 or 3 from families around the world. 2 or 3 from family. I'm not sure. I know for sure 2, maybe a third one that have what's called quintuplets. They have quints. From families that are quints. So over here it has to do with the attitude. A lot of this has to do with the attitude. Now, what's interesting is that the obligation is on a man and not on a woman. A woman certainly does not have a Torah obligation to approve. There is an opinion that she has a rabbinic obligation. There's an opinion that she is what's called a messiah. She aids her husband in fulfilling the mitzvah. The question becomes, why doesn't she have an obligation? Now, first of all, let's get it clear. A woman who wants to get married, if she gets married, it has to be with intent to have children. She can't get married intending not to have children. So she has 2 choices. She could stay single. She has no obligation to get married, but if she's going to get married, or a woman is allowed to marry a man who's already fulfilled the mitzvah. The man who's on a second marriage, he's already fulfilled the mitzvah. A woman is not allowed to getting married with intent to not have children. Now the question becomes, why? Why does the Torah absolve women why don't women have an obligation to get married and have children just like men do? Why does?
They naturally have that urge to want to be a giver and take care of children.
Excellent. So I mean, we also have a natural urge. We have a natural urge to eat cholent on Shabbos, but we still have a mitzvah to eat cholent. Right? Why we have a natural urge? That's great. We have other natural urges, but we still have commands. I mean, so why here, specifically here, does the Torah say, well, even she has a natural urge? The answer is the natural urge is why she doesn't have to have the obligation. But why isn't there an obligation? Why isn't there an obligation? So that the Meshech Chochmah says, because having a child involves a certain element of risk. Childbirth does involve an element of risk. It's nowadays it's relatively unheard of, but there have been problems. Unfortunately, there's a woman on my block who has for the last 20 or so years, she had an epidural, which is the shot in the spine, and something went wrong, and she's been paralyzed from the waist down since then. So there is a risk. There are women, all sorts of problems that could happen. Chas v'shalom. The Torah will not command a woman to put her life in danger, other than giving up our lives for the 3 cardinal sins, where you have no choice. The word Torah's ways are ways of pleasantness. The Torah will not demands from somebody that they place their life in danger, right? And a woman who does not want to go through childbirth, the pain of childbirth, and the danger, the minor element of danger. So the Torah does not make it an out-and-out command. So what'll be with the world population? To that, there's a built-in safety valve, which is that women have a natural mothering instinct. They want to have children, and they want to have more children. There are women who, on the table, holding their newborn baby, their first question is, when's she going to have another one? It's an instinct that the women have. They want to be mothers, therefore rely on it. But the Torah will not command her to put herself into a situation. That's what the Meshech Chochmah says. She cannot be commanded to put herself into a life-threatening situation. The pain of childbirth and all that goes with it. But a man has an obligation to do whatever he can in his power in order to fulfill the mitzvah of pruervu. Okay, and once you have children, you have to have more. Now, one of the reasons why we have to have children, more children, is because each individual, there are no two individuals in the history of the world who have been identical. Even identical twins are not identical because one was born before the other. And one's name is Shmuli and one's name is Chaim. So there are always going to be differences. That means each person who serves the Ribono Shalom with their life circumstances, their challenges, their ordeals, their talents, their abilities, each person is serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu differently. No two people serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu the identical way. And since each person serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a separate Kiddush Hashem, so the more people, the more Kiddush Hashem there are in the world. And therefore that's the first mitzvah in the Torah. All right, we'll continue with this tomorrow, gentlemen.